Idaho Matters podcast is brought to you by St. Luke's On-Demand Virtual Care, which allows patients to see a provider from their home using a computer or smartphone with on-demand care for common ailments, such as a cough, sore throat, or a sinus issue. More information at stlukesonline.org.
Federal funding is gone, rescinded by the U.S. Senate, including money already committed to Boise State Public Radio. For rural communities, that means more than a loss of news or music. It means the potential loss of access to emergency information. If this station has ever helped you feel safer, more informed, or less alone, this is the moment to give. Donate at boisestatepublicradio.org.
From the studios of Boise State Public Radio News, I'm Samantha Wright, filling in for Jim Gaudette. It's Idaho Matters. Ladybugs, with their signature polka dots and bright red bodies, they're very easy to spot. And during the summer, it's not uncommon to find a handful of them hard at work in the garden. Once they've taken care of the pests, though, and their source of food is no longer plentiful, they often migrate to the mountains, which is exactly where Valley Lookout editor Drew Dotson found thousands of the friendly beetles on a recent hike up Council Mountain. He joins us now, along with Boise Dev reporter Anna Daly, who wrote about Drew's experience. Hey, guys, thanks for coming on the show.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Drew, take us back to your hike up Council Mountain. Tell us what you saw up there. This is a little unusual.
Absolutely. So this was Memorial Day weekend. It was the Saturday of that weekend. It was quite hot out, and for anyone who doesn't know, Council Mountain is it's kind of buried in the range between Donnelly and Council. If you're at the summit of Tamarack Resort and you're looking west, you're kind of looking dead at Council Mountain. Or another good viewing point for it, if you're driving southbound on Idaho 55, about halfway between McCall and Donnelly, you can look to the southwest towards like No Business Fire Lookout, if you're familiar with that, and you can kind of see up that draw there. And Council Mountain is the big square-topped mountain. It comes in at just over 8,000 feet in elevation, 8,126, I believe. But in any case, I'm a big backcountry skier. That's how I spend my winters. And in the spring, the game kind of transitions to, peak bagging and trying to get into cool, really remote places and ski lines that aren't as accessible in the winter. And so that's what we were doing on Memorial Day weekend with Council Mountain. We had hiked in from the Council side, and it's a crazy long hike. And, it's at this point in the year, we're late May, and obviously there's still enough snow to ski, but there's also lots of dirt, lots of grass. It just depends on exposure aspect. Obviously, your north slopes, your east slopes, they have a bit more snow than a lot of your south-facing stuff that gets more sunlight. And so anyways, as we're walking on dirt up the ridge line to get to Council Mountain, we're seeing some ladybugs and whatever. It's springtime, right? It's nothing you don't expect. They're just buzzing about the sagebrush and that kind of thing. We get up to the summit of Council Mountain finally, and anybody who climbs mountains a lot knows that a lot of times at the proper summit there's a rock pile or a stake or some sort of formation that people have piled up to denote the high point, the proper summit, and oftentimes also a U.S. Geologic Survey cap. And so we're approaching that on Council Mountain, and it's almost like it's moving. This pile of rocks that's where the summit is. And we can't tell what it is, and we're getting closer and closer, and it's kind of discolored a little bit. You can tell the rocks are kind of a darker gray or brown color, and we're seeing kind of like a reddish type of color moving on them. And we get up to it, and sure enough, it's tens of thousands of ladybugs piled on top of each other, crawling around, buzzing about, just everywhere. We had 3 of us in our group that day. None of us had seen anything like it.
I saw some of your pictures, and that's weird to begin with. And then your description of the sort of the moving rock is really, really creepy. Anna, you you reported on this after Drew, of course, ran into the ladybugs. Is there a name for this? What is this?
Yeah, so this is called ladybug aggregation. And Drew had posted just his weekend adventures up in the mountains and sent the picture. And none of us had ever even seen something like this before. So I was like, I have to write an Inside Idaho about this and learn more.
So, what did you find out? Why do they do this? Why do they get together like this in the mountains?
Yeah, so usually they form late fall or early winter and remain there through the winter. And a lot of times they're doing it according to University of Idaho professor. They do that to keep predators away, which makes sense because it is quite the sight when you see it.
And how does that keep predators away? Is it just, safety in numbers kind of a thing, Anna?
Yeah, so Dr. Cook was saying that basically the red and black color on them warns would-be predators not to eat them, according to him. And by aggregating in the large groups, the color pattern can be seen further away to warn off those predators.
We're speaking with Boise Dev reporter Anna Daly and Drew Dotson, editor for the Valley Lookout, about why thousands of ladybugs have been gathering in the Idaho mountains. Are there any other reason that ladybugs gather together like this? This is for Anna or Drew. Why are there other reasons?
Yeah, so we also found that it helps them conserve body heat and energy.
Oh, neat. That's really cool. Is there a normal time of year for them to do this? Do they do it all summer? Drew, you said you were up there over Memorial Day.
Yeah, so my understanding, and this is again credit to Anna and her research working with the University of Idaho, but that is that they, probably what I saw that day on Council Mountain was kind of the beginnings of the ladybugs coming out of what I like to think of as their hibernation, essentially, where they're bedding down in these sorts of rock piles and I mean, for me, it seems a little counterintuitive, right? Like we're at over 8,000 feet in elevation, and that's where we're hiding out to retain warmth and conserve energy. Like it doesn't make a ton of sense to me, but at the same time, a lot of these high alpine ridge lines and particularly rock clusters, they melt out first because they hold that heat of the sunlight, and so you'll see that in the spring. Some of the very first snow to go when you get in the alpine is the stuff up the highest. And so with that, the University of Idaho professor, Dr. Cook, said that, typically you'll see these aggregations start to form in late fall or early winter. So it sounds like effectively they're out and about for the summer, and then, winter until early spring, they're hunkered down.
And did you find out with the research, do they do this in other places? I mean, or is it just like mountaintops?
I think certainly, I don't want to speak nationally, but certainly across Idaho, I thought one of the interesting things about Anna's story was a photo provided by Dr. Cook. And that's just he's literally got a photo of them doing the same thing, this aggregation, just on the ground in some grass by a telephone pole in Moscow, which, mountainous, but not to the same degree of what we're talking about, with Council Mountain.
Yeah. I think this is fascinating. Okay, so I guess my question is, do they come back to the same spot every year? Because, if you wanted to see this, it might, be ideal to follow you back up the mountain at the same time next year. And if they come back to the same place, I don't know. Do they? Did you find out?
We did not find that out. I would, on an individual level, I don't know that, it's the same ladybugs in the same spot year after year, but I have to believe that there's hot spots, right? That are just naturally kind of good for what they're looking for. And I imagine Council Mountain would be one of those. As an interesting aside to all this, again, I'm a big backcountry skier, and one of the popular lines to ski or mountains to ski here in Valley County is of course Jug Handle Mountain. If you don't know where that one is, it's kind of the most prominent peak you see really from anywhere in the McCall area along Idaho 55, particularly looking eastward from like Lake Fork. If you're familiar with Jug Mountain Ranch, that's what we're talking about. But in any case, Jug Handle Mountain has several false summits. The southernmost one is known as Ladybug Peak. And I've known this for years. Me and my friends, we thought, well, maybe it's just because it has a rounded top, like a ladybug. But Ladybug Peak is also, when the snow melts off of it, is nothing but a big old pile of rocks. And so it got me thinking, like, well, gosh, maybe that's how it got its name. Maybe it's not that it's a rounded peak. Maybe it's that the ladybugs aggregate here in massive numbers, because I can tell you the rock pile at Ladybug Peak is, oh my gosh, so much larger than the one on top of Council Mountain. So I don't know that. I haven't confirmed that, but that's something to follow up on next spring for me.
Right. We all need to go up to Ladybug Mountain in the spring and see if they're there and track that down. Well, Anna, this is great reporting to find this out. I think it's fascinating. And Drew, how weird. I'm so glad you found it and took pictures, because how cool is that? That is amazing. We've been speaking with Boise Dev reporter Anna Daly and editor for the Valley Lookout, Drew Dotson, about the thousands of ladybugs that have been gathering in the Idaho mountains. Thank you both. This has been great.
Thanks for having us, Samantha.
Thank you.
This is the Idaho Matters podcast. I'm Gemma Gaudette.
These days, there's so much news, it can be hard to keep up with what it all means for you, your family, and your community. The Consider This podcast from NPR features our award-winning journalism. 6 days a week, we bring you a deep dive on a news story and provide the context and analysis that helps you make sense of the news. We get behind the headlines. We get to the truth. Listen to the Consider This podcast from NPR.